to Startup Central, the only show of its kind on Indian television dedicated, of course, to startups. It's here that we talk about innovation, technology, disruption, basically anything to do with the new economy that you need to know is going to be here on ET Now every weekday at sharp 6 p.m. Like all the stakeholders of the community that we get on the show, the team that puts the show together, the Startup Central team thrives on constructive criticism. So keep writing into us to help us take the show to the next level. Our email address right on top, suc@etnow.tv. We're going to take a little breather from the union budget and talk about other things to do with tech and startups. And there's been a big announcement that was actually there before union budget, and it had been cleared that NRIs would be able to use UPI even overseas, and the big catch, and it doesn't have to be by using an Indian mobile number. How is this going to work? What if you have friends, relatives, family abroad? Can they send you money? Can they do UPI? Can they buy things for you when they come back to India and use UPI? That and more, and a lot more. I'm going to be talking to the maker of the UPI, the NPCI, and the CEO, Praveena Rai, now here with us. Hi, Ms. Rai. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for being with us here on ET Now and Startup Central. This has always been seen as a game changer since the day it was announced. I should point out this is the first time that the NPCI is going to be talking about it. Tell us, has it gone live? What has the response been like, Praveena?
Good day, Nayanthara. Great to be here talking to you. So we are very excited about announcing the ability of UPI now to offer a service that will permit NRIs to link directly to their bank accounts in India and use UPI services. Now, interestingly, I think I just want to set the stage for this. During the pandemic times, we really didn't have people traveling, and it was also coincided with the phenomenal growth of UPI, both in terms of volumes and in terms of users. And I would say that it is in the holiday season towards the end of 2022 that we really had this huge number of NRIs, having their annual travel back to India, some of them after a gap of 2 years during the pandemic when perhaps they were not traveling as much. And this time there was an overwhelming demand and overwhelming feedback that we were getting from across the industry, stating that people want to experience UPI, they want to use UPI when they are in India, they want to be able to use UPI with their Indian bank accounts even when they are not here. And that really got us going on this, thanks to support from RBI, who also approved the proposition. Now, the limitations by which UPI was available for people to onboard only on domestic shows, i.e. you needed to have a Indian telephone number, a mobile number that is issued in India, and you needed to be in India for this service to actually operate. So now it could be an Indian number, the individual could be overseas, it could be an overseas number itself, on which UPI onboarding can now take place. So this opens up a space of experience. I think if you look at just high-level numbers, 35 million is the Indian diaspora globally, a subset of which will be people who have NRI accounts which are regulated, so NRO or NRE accounts. I think the NRE account number itself is about 13 million odd. So these are KYC accounts that banks hold, Indian banks hold. And in accordance with the FEMA guidelines, they will now be able to offer this service to their customers who are not located in India, but are non-residents. So which means that they will...
Praveena, if I could interject you there. Let's break this down for our viewers. Let's break this down for the viewers of ET Now who are in India. And of course, we beam overseas as well. We have a large NRI viewer base. So break it down for us. Let's start from step number one. If an NRI wants to use UPI and they live in a foreign country, can you tell us very simply how it's going to work?
So in the first phase, we've opened it up to 10 markets, the top 10 countries where the diaspora exists. And amongst them would be countries like UAE and the US, which probably have about 2.5 to 3 million people each. So if there is somebody in the US who currently has a telephone number +1 ABC, this person will be able to download a UPI app and they will be able to onboard themselves onto UPI from the US. So that would be the primary change. So the telephone number is a local number. And a lot of people, once they move out of India and they've lived for a few years outside, don't necessarily hold on to their sort of Indian telephone numbers. KYC regulations are also there. So there is a US number, a person located in the US, or a UAE number, a person located in the UAE will be actually able to onboard themselves on UPI wherever they are.
Can you tell us that, okay, fine, the NRI is able to send a remittance to India, is able to use UPI to carry out a transaction. Can an Indian use a foreign number to send money via UPI? Like, what if I send a friend of mine, what if I'm an NRI and I send my friend and, she wants to borrow 500 rupees. I lend her 500 rupees and she wants to pay me back, right? Is that going to be allowed?
Once you're onboarded on UPI, you're a UPI user. So you can pay, you can receive. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can make an e-commerce transaction when if there's a UPI QR, you can scan and pay. So the functionality of UPI, in accordance with FEMA guidelines, right? So there are guidelines in terms of how much money can be transferred out of India, what's the purpose. So in accordance with all the guidelines, the UPI features of both send and receive will start become applicable.
So if an NRI using an international mobile number has an Indian bank account where the KYC, etc. is done, Praveena, how long will it take that NRI to do the various paperwork, if any of it is required, KYC or whatever it is, to start using the UPI? Like, how seamless is the experience going to be?
It will be instantaneous. So there is no
as
paperwork.
Good as whether you're here, UPI, whether you're living. Yeah.
Yes. UPI is not about paperwork, right? It's a fully digital instant experience. So the same experience will now get reflected in this journey also.
Okay, that's great to know. Because that's one of the questions that we'd actually received from our viewers, that how seamless is this experience going to be? Is it going to be at par with the experience that we in India go through? The next question I would like to ask you, Praveena, is that, India in 2022 became the first country on this planet to receive remittances of $100 billion in a year. Now, usually UPI is done in smaller transactions. You and I have discussed this on this show many times. What kind of a share do you think, when it comes to remittances, could come from UPI? Have you guys done any number crunching? Now, what I'm trying to understand is, how big can this become?
So, remittances is a different part of the discussion, right? Because right now we are talking about enabling UPI for NRIs for use with Indian bank accounts. So receiving and sending money from their NRO or NRE bank account in India. Remittances is a parallel proposition which we are driving through NPCI International Private Limited, identifying significant corridors of remittances for various markets. The proposition with Singapore is in place, the proposition for UAE is in place, and slowly the network will start kicking in. And we do expect that a significant share of retail remittances should then move on to UPI rails. And it will bring the same convenience, the instantaneous cross-border transaction ability that we enjoy domestically will now be available for international transactions as well.
So that's how it is going to work. Because, I was just trying to understand how big it can be. But Praveena, so does this mean that this is going to be the next biggest trigger for the UPI, just given the diaspora that we have overseas?
I think it is a strong step in taking the UPI experience international. Having said that, I think if we look at really what is the next biggest trigger for UPI for use in India, and really how that journey is going to look out, we look at it in two lenses. One lens is really around how do we onboard more number of users onto UPI, the number being significantly large as it stands. And that's really to take on Aadhaar as an onboarding mechanism to UPI. So UPI, to link your bank account to UPI, you need a debit card. So this increases the convenience beyond what it is today. Some people might still find friction in the debit card based linking journey. So this moves it to Aadhaar based linking journey, which is now well accepted across the country. You know, everybody knows their Aadhaar number, uses their Aadhaar across various requirements. But what's also exciting is the kind of use that is coming on it, right? So the Reserve Bank of India governor in September launched two very significant services, one being RuPay credit card on UPI. So we are really excited about that because I think for the first time it brings credit onto UPI in the form of the RuPay credit card, which is a well-regulated and well-understood instrument. Today, there are about 80 million credit cards issued in the market. One would think about 45 million users. We're looking to really increase the penetration significantly of credit cards through this linkage on UPI. It decreases the cost of onboarding. It really provides for a different kind of credit algorithms that can be used to issue credit deeper into the country, and really brings the credit experience on UPI across the board to every single person who's a UPI user.
But that's going to be the next big trigger for the UPI when credit is launched on it, which already has. We had seen that cabinet decision as well, and RBI talking about it. So that's going to be one big trigger, and of course, NRIs being allowed to use it. Praveena Rai, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us today on ET Now to decode it, simplify it. Right now, NRIs in 10 countries can use UPI. It's going to be as seamless for all of us here back home. You do need, however, an Indian bank account where the KYC and all has been done.